Bought some fantasy figures. Back to PJ in PJ's mom's basement. And what were you keeping an eye on in this fantasy figure yesterday, PJ?
Lots of things. Some fewer injuries than weeks past, so it certainly helps when we're starting to look toward next week. I don't have as many must-replace type of situations as we've had. Ben Roethlisberger certainly.
Big Ben going down.
The biggest story, but I mean, fewer than in weeks past. So, if you're looking for quarterbacks, Andrew Luck next week, you got to imagine that if this week was the emotional barrier that was broken, if you saw Tom Brady against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you know that they got torched. Mm-hmm. And when Mr. Luck comes to town, there's a future there. It's been one of those kind of iffy situations with Andrew so far this season from a fantasy perspective, because the guy is going to get an opportunity to throw the ball. And he was, as we mentioned in week 1 of Horseplay, he was one of the top overall picked quarterbacks. So he's disappointed a lot of owners who gambled on him in the first round. But I think he'll be back, especially with this getting over the first win hump. And he's got an easy defense to go against.
Hey, PJ, let's talk about Frank Gore, right? I mean, we
Frank,
finally saw a Frank Gore that I think we all expected to see yesterday. I was asked pregame if he was going to get 100 yards. I said no just because I didn't think he would get the touches. I feel like he's got to get 20 touches to get 100 yards and average 5 yards, obviously, per carry. Yesterday, I think he had 14, 15 touches for right around 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Is this something, because I think it is, where we're going to see this kind of Frank Gore? Because it looked like he was running with a purpose, running like he had something to prove yesterday after that fumble against the Jets.
Yeah, I think you're spot on as far as assessment. To be considered, as it was the Tennessee Titans defense. We're not talking about a lockdown group here. But certainly I think you're onto something. I mean, quiet start, as I think the entirety of the Indianapolis Colts have suffered from. I mean, if you only score 21 points in the first 2 weeks, you're not going to get too much off the ground there. But I think when you put him into the mix with the way that, again, back to the emotional barrier, he's another guy you could probably start as a running back number 2. You don't want to go with 1 just yet because you want to kind of see the trends, but I think it's a good observation, Jim. A couple other points for must pickups this week if you don't already have them, and this is a sad story. Andy Dalton's only in about 30% of leagues as a starter. He's been lighting it up, excuse me. A.J. Green obviously playing out of his mind this week helped him. But he's a legit starter now. He is someone that you can look to produce, and the Bengals might be the real deal. There was a headline this morning on an unnamed sports website that said, "Are the Bengals Super Bowl contenders?"
Here we go.
How
many times have we heard that with the Bengals, right?
Exactly.
Real deal in the regular season, no doubt. We'll see. What kind of Andy Dalton we get in the fall season.
It's still September. It's still September. A couple other pickups. Thomas Rawls, Seattle. Marshawn Lynch faced with some injuries. Rawls, an undrafted rookie. 16 carries, 104 yards. He looked fantastic. And of course, the Seahawks dominated that game as a result.
Jimmy Graham back on track, right? Didn't he have a pretty big day yesterday, fantasy-wise? A couple touchdowns?
He looked fiery. And, he had just complained, I think, not being happy with where he was in the system. And I don't know if that was the spark that was needed, but Russell Wilson found him on some nice throws, and Jimmy made it happen, breaking a couple of tackles afterwards. So, he's certainly another one to watch. Speaking of tight ends, I got your pick of the week here as soon as I get out of my lock screen.
Lay it on me, man.
Tight end for the Washington Redskins. You might not have heard of this guy unless you've been paying real close attention. Jordan Reed. Yeah. Yes. Kirk Cousins is finding him. He has the 3rd most targets of any tight end in the league, second only to Gronk and Greg Olsen. And that's a good sign for his continued production. The guy has been lighting up this year. He's sort of flown under the radar, but no longer. The blip has shown up.
How about Kirk Cousins? I watched the game the other night.
Yeah.
And they kept showing shots of RG3 on the sidelines in his sweatsuit. Mm-hmm. It just got painful after a while.
It did.
Because you can tell Cousins is the future. RG3, say what you want about him, he's the past.
Well, I got to be honest with you. If RG3 is inactive, I don't even know why you're keeping him around the team.
Right.
I mean, because it's got to be an uncomfortable situation. If Kirk Cousins is your starter.
If it's uncomfortable on TV.
Yeah.
for
somebody that's not even
Yes.
associated with the team,
right.
I gotta agree with you. I don't know why they would have kept him on the 53-man roster just to keep him inactive every week. You got your starter, you got your backup. Just cut ties.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe all I can think of.
I'm guessing it's financial though, isn't it? Tied to something.
I don't think it's tied to financially. I think they're going to try to see if maybe they can get a trade
for him.
and get
Right.
something for him, that would make more sense to me rather than because I believe he came out the same year as Andrew, so this is his 4th year. So he's at the end of his contract. You can do a 5th-year option, but it's not guaranteed or anything like that. You can cut him and still not have to pay him. But I'm wondering if they're going to try to see, hey, let's carry this. Let's pick up the 5th-year option. Let's carry him through training camp next year. Maybe he has a really good training camp. We can trade him and get something for him. And if we don't, then we can cut him then.
PJ, so if you've got Big Ben, what do you do now? Because I'm hearing Ben's out, probably not an ACL, so that's good news for him.
MCL
it's an
sprain with a
MCL,
bone bruise,
which
4 to
takes
6.
which takes about 4 to 6 weeks. So, who's the hot QB out there that many people may not have?
Yeah,
is available.
It's going to be tough to replace Ben. I mean, it just is. Derek Carr surprised this week. And, you know, he was someone who was sort of uncertain going into this year, and I think he was even hurt part of 1 week. But he showed up this week, and Amari Cooper, his wide receiver, I believe rookie out of Alabama. Cooper, he showed up with Derek, and I think those two are now on the same page a couple weeks into the season. So you're not going to get a straight replacement for Ben, but Derek Carr's a good option, in addition to Andy Dalton there, who is the big deal. One last fantasy item for you. My mom agrees because she wanted to pick up Pat McAfee in her Wine Club's fantasy football league, but you can't. You can't pick up punters, but
Right.
you sure do wish you could with the productivity he's had for this team, if you counted, punts inside the 20 for some points,
There's
but-
got to be a fantasy league out there somewhere that includes punters, isn't there? There's got to be.
There must be.
There's got to be.
I'll look for that.
Huh?
I will.
Ask your mom and your mom's
I
wine
will,
league.
She's out right now. She's out at lunch.
PJ.
I will ask her when she gets back.